What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and I believe I figured out the title for Avengers 4. So without going through a great big huge diatribe, we'll do that in a minute. I think the title for Avengers 4 is Infinite Avengers. I think that's what they're calling it. Now, here's the reason why I say that. There have been a lot of theories that have thrown out there, and as far as I'm aware, Infinite Avengers hasn't necessarily been, or hasn't been debunked by the Russo brothers. I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever think of it, but I don't think it was debunked. It hasn't been debunked by the Russo brothers. They turned down Avengers 4 Infinity Gauntlet, Avengers 4 Avengers Disassembled, and Avengers 4 Avengers Forever. Like they turned down those titles, but they said that Avengers Forever is the closest one. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, like, if Avengers Forever is the closest thing to the title, and they said that like elements of Avengers, Avengers Forever are essentially part of the story, then there's only one other conclusion that I can draw, and that's Infinite Avengers. So here's the reason why. Marvel movies follow the old Stan Lee, Jack Kirby style of storytelling, to be honest. I mean, that's really what they are. Those of you guys who don't know, back when Jack Kirby and Stan Lee really helped to like turn Marvel into the powerhouse that it is now, back in the 60s and the early 70s, for the most part, every comic was basically self-contained. You would have a couple instances where you would have like a 3-issue story, but for the most part, within the span of 22 to or really like 19 to 25 pages, basically it was a complete story. Is really what it was. And especially when it came to things like the introduction of Iron Man, the return of Captain America, the introduction of Thor, the Avengers, so on and so forth. It was, here's the star of the comic, and this is their origin story, or what they happen to be doing at the time if it's moved past their origin. But in the case of the MCU, it's adapting the old origin story. So here's who Tony Stark is, and here's how Tony Stark got his suit, and here's why Tony Stark got his suit, and here's his main enemy. Here's Tony Stark fighting him. Tony Stark wins. Done. Like it's a method that's worked for Marvel Comics for years, and in truth, like it's a method that works for the MCU. You don't become the most financially successful film franchise, not adjusted for inflation, by doing things that don't really work, if that makes any sense. The system works for them, and they're hugely popular because of it. But the truth is when you look at Infinity War, it's basically the first half of a whole film. What they did with an Infinity War would be like if they took Black Panther and they split the movie in half, and Black Panther Part 1 ended with Eric Killmonger defeating T'Challa, throwing him off a cliff, and then ascending to the throne of Black Panther. That would be like how Infinity War ended. And then Black Panther 2 would be when T'Challa comes back. So sure, Infinity War didn't necessarily follow the formula that the heroes always lose to a T, but we know that in Avengers 4, the villains will lose, rather. That follows the formula, the villains will always lose. We know in Avengers 4 that Thanos will lose. I mean, things will have to go back to the way they were before. But this is the reason why I think it's Infinite Avengers. One of my favorite Avengers runs of all time is by a guy named Jonathan Hickman. Jonathan Hickman writes like these super complex stories, and they stretch on and on and on for like 3 years. I mean, they're insane how long they can last for. In his Avengers and New Avengers run, it dealt with something called the Incursions. If you know the story, bear with me. My channel grew by 60,000 subscribers in 14 days. There's a ton of new people here who probably don't know anything about comics. The Incursions were basically Marvel's way of telling the story of how the multiverse was going to end and all new, all different Marvel was going to kick off. To make it pretty short, what you ended up finding out is there was a race called the Beyonders, and they had this grand experiment. They were going to create a being called the Molecule Man Owen Reese, and they were going to put one version of him in every single universe. And Owen Reese is super powerful. He could control the molecular structure of matter. Really, he could control atoms. But the fact remains, the goal of the Beyonders was to detonate all the Molecule Men at one time and blow up the multiverse just to see what happened. They're an incoming book adaptation of Mythbusters, is really what they were. The result is that Doctor Doom, the villain of the Fantastic Four, and the main Marvel universe, Owen Reese, realized what was going on. And their idea was to go into the multiverse and to stop this from happening. They ended up screwing up. They killed the Molecule Man in a different universe, and the result was that universe exploded. And when it did, it pushed the 2 universes next to it into the universes next to them. And so it was this cascading effect. It was just bam, 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 bam. And the universes kept crashing into each other. And that was called the Incursions. What ended up happening is you had a group called the Illuminati, which at the time that story was written was Captain America, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Name of the Submariner, Black Panther, Black Bolt of the Inhumans, and Beast, Hank McCoy of the X-Men. And they ended up coming together with the Infinity Stones because the Illuminati had this idea that the Infinity Stones are too powerful for any one person to wield in its totality. So they split the gems up amongst each other and said that they will hold them but never use them, only in a time of dire need. And when your universe is about to be destroyed, it's kind of a time of dire need. And so because of that, they brought the Infinity Stones together, they reformed the Infinity Gauntlet, they gave it to Captain America. And they said, here you go, Captain America, you wield it because, freedom, whatever. And so Captain America used the Infinity Gauntlet to try to push one of the universes away. It didn't work. All the gems shattered. Like they were all totally destroyed except for the Time Stone. The Time Stone just vanished. It disappeared into the time stream. And we didn't find out what happened to it for something like 50 issues. Fast forward over the course of those 50 issues, the Time Stone returns and it yanks, I know it's Captain America, I think it's Black Widow and I think it's Hawkeye, and it yanks them and it starts taking them like into the future. So the first thing is like 50 years into the future. The second thing is 100 years in the future. After that, it's like 1,000 and then 50,000 and so on and so forth. But that whole time traveling caper with Captain America and those guys, that's in Avengers Volume 6. Avengers Volume 6 is called Infinite Avengers. Now, why do I think that? Because it's one thing to just throw a theory out there. It's another to have some sort of evidence for it. The evidence is slim. It's pretty thin. When it comes to Marvel movies, the proof is always in the credits. Usually the end credit scene or something like that is when they do the great big huge drop. When people sit at the end of Infinity War, no one watches the credits. They wait until the end credits or the mid-credit scene, but no one looks at the names that are scrolling. No one looks at all the things that are going on, and they certainly don't look at the title at the end of the movie. If you go back and you watch Infinity War, all the credits roll. Right before the post-credit scene, it says Avengers Infinity War. All the letters fade except for IA. And to me, it's Infinite Avengers. Although now I say it, that is a really slim and thin theory. But I think it would be Infinite Avengers. And here's the other reason why. The Russo brothers, when they were going through and they were debunking all these different, names that were given, Avengers Forever, they said, is the closest one. Now, here's the point of Avengers Forever. Avengers Forever was a story that was written in the 1990s, and I'm pretty sure it was the 1990s, and it dealt with a villain called Immortus. If you don't know who he is, it doesn't matter. Immortus sucks anyway. The whole point of the story was that it was basically the Avengers of the past, the present, and the future all being brought together by a singular, by like Rick Jones, which if you don't know who he is, it doesn't matter either. But it was basically all the Avengers from the past, the present, and the future, or at least the most popular ones, who were brought together to face off against Immortus. Now, Marvel repeated that in a story called Ultron Forever, which I don't remember what issues that crossed, but it was basically the same thing, that Ultron had conquered the world. And in fact, that story came out of Jonathan Hickman's Avengers, where it showed a future where Ultron conquered the world and replaced all the Avengers with robots. And so it was kind of cool. It was interesting. Like everybody was basically robots except for humans. There were small human encampments of people who hadn't been wiped out yet. But the fact remains here that when the Russo brothers say Avengers Forever is the closest thing to the title, my thought is that it's drawing on elements of Avengers Forever, which they said like elements are going to be in there. And if elements of Avengers Forever are going to be in there, then what it means is, it seems to me, and it seems to be the most reasonable conclusion, that if we're not going to see cosmic entities, which I still want to do theory videos about cosmic entities, I don't really care, but if we're not going to see like the Living Tribunal or any of those entities, then it means that it's quite literally on the shoulders of the superhero community to come together and to defeat Thanos. Well, we know from the ending of Infinity War, that's going to be a very difficult task. And it stands to reason that like you could bring them all together, because here's a funny thing. The Time Stone spans, like the Infinity Stones, really the Time Stone specifically spans all time in any one universe. We'll probably talk about that when we talk about the Living Tribunal. 22 years of reading comics, I learn new things every day. I just learned about like universal, dimensional, and physical energy, and that Marvel actually lays out how magic works, and they did actually explain the purpose of the Living Tribunal in Fantastic Four number 500. So I had no idea that was the case. But the fact remains here, when it comes to the Time Stone, it spans all time in any one particular universe. You can travel from the very beginning of the universe to the very ends of the universe and everywhere in between using the Time Stone. Just because Thanos has the Infinity Stones in the present doesn't mean he'll have them in the future. And it doesn't mean that like that they won't be brought back. It'd be very easy for someone in like 5 years, 5 years in the future, to grab the Time Stone, the Illuminati or anybody to grab the Time Stone and jump back to the modern day and basically say like, hey, we all have to like I've gathered all these superheroes to basically like travel throughout the past and the present. Avengers in the past, Avengers in the present day, Avengers in the future, the whole 9 yards, bring them all together and they all face off against Thanos. And this, I think, is a really cool idea. And here's the reason why. Avengers 4 is supposed to be like a jumping on platform to the next phase of the MCU. What better way to do that than to grab the characters or some of the characters that'll appear in Phase 4 and bring them into Avengers 4. You don't really find anything out about them. Like you have Moon Knight, and Moon Knight's kind of interesting. If you're not a fan of Batman, then Moon Knight's definitely Batman. If you are a fan of Batman, Moon Knight is not Batman. It depends on who you're talking to. But Moon Knight's got multiple personalities, and there's like, what is it? Mark Spector, Steve Grant. And I always forget the last one. I always think the last one is Moon Knight, but that's not true. There's a third personality, I'm pretty sure. And we just did the story like 7 months ago. So I don't remember who the third personality is. I keep wanting to say Jamie Oliver, but he's a chef. So you could grab those characters like Moon Knight. Here's another thing you could do too. You could say that like Miles Morales is Spider-Man in 5 years and just bring Miles Morales in. You have like Miles Morales and he's the Spider-Man in Avengers 4. It'd be a great way to like introduce his character, literally test the waters and see how people respond to that kind of stuff. It'd be a genius thing to pull off because what you do is you basically get this new set of Avengers. It lives up to like the new Avengers concept. It plays the plot of Avengers Forever and then it's titled Infinite Avengers and they all basically merge together to give us Avengers 4. I don't know. I mean, at this point, when it comes to these things, I'm spitballing. I have no real idea. No one does. Marvel is playing it so hush-hush. Oh my God, they're playing it so close to the vest when it comes to that movie. They're not telling a soul about what's going on. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I'm pretty curious. I know you guys have like a lot of theories of your own on what happens. I've been reading through them, like in these videos that I've been doing, because I usually never do these on DC days. I usually always do these on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays when I do Marvel content. But I honestly didn't want to let this go. I just want to like throw this out there because it's been bugging me. I've been up since 3:30 in the morning, and it's been bugging me ever since I first crossed my mind. But yeah, like let me know what you guys think, because I'm curious to see what you guys end up coming up with. And yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.